O eternal and almighty God, from whom all power and wisdom come, we are assembled here before thee to frame such laws as may tend to the welfare and prosperity of our province. Grant, O merciful God, we pray thee, that we may desire only that which is in accordance with thy will, that we may seek it with wisdom and know it with certainty and accomplish it perfectly. For the glory and honor of thy name and for the welfare of all our people. Amen. We acknowledge we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota Oite, Dene, Sulene, and Neothorg nations. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Please be seated. Orders of the day, private members' business. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I seek leave to see if we can call Bill number 225, the Public Schools Amendment Act, Universal Screening for Learning Disabilities, and not recognize the clock until all members that wish to speak to it have, and bring it to a vote.
Is there leave to allow the member for Tyndall Park to call? Sorry about that. Is there leave to call for concurrence and third reading debate of Bill 225, the Public Schools Amendment Act, Universal Screening for Learning Disabilities, and with the House to not see the clock until the question has been put? Is there leave? Leave has been denied. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Can you please resume debate on Bill 222?
It has been announced that we will now resume debate on second reading of Bill 222, the Criminal Trespassers Act and amendments to the Occupiers Liability Act. The debate is standing in the name of the Honourable Member for Lage-Modière, who has 9 minutes remaining. The Honourable Member for Lage-Modière.
Good morning, Honourable Speaker. It's a pleasure to be here on this glorious Thursday morning to speak about Bill 222, the Criminal Trespassers Act, and amendments to the Occupiers Liability Act. It's been quite a week here. I'm really excited to be here this Thursday, but I think what I think the opposition is trying to get at in this bill, it's been a while since we've heard them speak about it, but I think we're trying to get to a point of like building senses of safety and like community, and a sense of like we can trust our processes and our institutions to be responsive to our needs, both as individuals, as families, and as communities. So I think that's their intention here. And I think we need to look at the track record of what we do in government to build that sense of safety, to build that sense of accountability. And so I want to look at a few things that our government has done in our first 2 years in government to really build that sense of accountability and safety and community. I want to acknowledge a lot of this work has been led by our Minister of Justice and Attorney General, so I want to acknowledge his work. And I also want to highlight the lawn blade, or the removal of lawn blades in different stores across Manitoba. It's made a huge difference. It's something the community was calling for. It was a concern for safety, and he took the initiative to work with retailers to get those off the shelves. And not only here in Manitoba, but he also worked with online retailers so that actually across Canada, lawn blades are less accessible. And this is leading to real impacts in community where folks are feeling safer and there's less lawn blades on the streets. So I want to thank him for that work right there. We also invested in, when we're talking about trespassing, we're talking about property, we made major investments in our security rebate, where individuals, households, as well as small businesses could apply for rebates for different security programs to ensure that their properties felt secure and were secured in different ways. And we heard across our many constituencies, from homeowners to landlords and also to small business owners, that this has made a real impact on their lives and their sense of safety in their communities. So I also want to thank the minister for that. I think he's doing a great job. And then we're also talking about the retail theft. I think trespassing applies to retail spaces as well. And we've done real work engaging with the community of small business owners, retailers who are experiencing different types of theft. And we've seen real improvement, both in like downtown Winnipeg, but also across the province. I know there's a downtown safety initiative over in Brandon that's seen real results. So when we're talking about trespassing and safety of property, we're thinking both of personal property, but also retail space as well. So our Attorney General is doing some really amazing work in terms of ensuring safety across the province. So I want to thank him for that. So lots of different policies coming out, but there's also financial investments that we need to talk about. Financial investments that were made, but also financial investments that weren't made. We had 7.5 years of PC governments, and you would think the party of tough on crime would be looking to invest in law enforcement, but we really didn't see that during their time in office. So in 2017, they scrapped the ankle bracelet monitoring program, and then in 2018, they froze funding. And all this impacts law enforcement's ability to engage with property owners on issues of trespassing. In 2019, they looked around and decided that municipal police forces didn't need their help. In 2020, there was no increase to funding, and also in 2021, still no increase. But then we got to 2023, and there was a great, sunny, brand new day where we were willing to work with municipalities and law enforcement to explore their needs and increase funding to ensure that they were able to address trespassing concerns and property concerns. And so we were there as partners at the table, ensuring that they were receiving the funding they needed. So we've been happy to increase funding across law enforcement, across the province, RCMP, Brandon, here in Winnipeg. It's been a really wonderful partnership that we've been able to build, and we know that these different law enforcement agencies are happy to work with us because they're seeing real results. They're seeing it from their staff, but they're also seeing it from their interactions with community. And so I think it's a little, it's interesting that we're here on October 30th. October 30th, the day before Halloween, the penultimate day of October. Some people know it as Gate Night. It's not a day that's recognized in our legislation. It's not in the days, months, or weeks that we recognize. But I know as a kid, as a teenager, there were some times my friends were engaged in, maybe I never engaged in it from what I can recall, but I heard rumors, maybe of toilet papering trees of neighbors, things like that. Real like low-key fun stuff that kids do on October 30th. And so I think it's really interesting that we're here today talking about trespassing and talking about like the impacts of trespassing and the impact on property owners. I know not everyone likes Halloween. Historically, some members on the PC side have not always enjoyed Halloween. But when I think about, when I reflect on Gate Night, I think about the time I worked with high school students. We have a lot of educators on this side of the house, really doing important work, building up students' capacity to make sense of right and wrong and develop different values and morals. And So I think it's really important that we consider young people in the development of these laws. Maybe like unintended consequences. Maybe that's what we need to think about, unintended consequences. And we know PCs sometimes think about unintended consequences, usually related to feeding kids in school. And like, yes, there's consequences, unintended, kids staying in school, maybe not trespassing. Maybe that's an impactful way to address trespassing is feeding kids in school, keeping them there, ensuring they're fed. But they've decided to go down a different route. They were worried about those unintended consequences, but I think we do really need to think about the unintended consequences of this type of legislation. This legislation paired with the private members resolution we're going to be hearing in the next hour is really moving towards an American-style stand your ground point of view. And we see what happens in the US with stand your ground legislation, where property is valued above the lives of community members, of youth, of parents. And it's really a dangerous road to go down. So that is the unintended consequence I'm worried about, is the impact of communities and this encroachment of this stand your ground ideology that's coming from south of the border. And so when I'm thinking about that, I also can't help but reflect about the experiences of Colton Bushy over in Saskatchewan, where unfortunately he lost his life to Gerald Stanley. And so I think I appreciate the opposition's effort, maybe their intention, but definitely unintended consequences are something we need to consider when we're looking at this legislation. And with that, I want to thank the Honourable Speaker for all this time.
The Honourable Member for Swan River.
Yeah. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise today on behalf of the people of the Swan River constituency, and give you an idea, this is a very rural constituency that goes all the way from the 53rd parallel north of Dawson Bay, through the Swan Valley, to Ethelbert, across through Roblin, Russell, Binscarth, and also east to Rossburn, Vista. So this takes in rural Manitoba, where we always encounter a lot of things happening in the early hours of the morning on a lot of the remote farmyards and in these or in these communities and things. And we believe that Manitobans work hard, respect the law, and should protect what's yours. Your government should stand with you on this, not with the trespasser who breaks in at night. And that's what Bill 222, the Criminal Trespassers Act, an amendment to the Occupiers Liability Act, is all about. It makes one simple common sense change. Criminals shouldn't be able to sue the people they were trying to rob. For too long, loopholes have allowed offenders to use the courts against their victims. This bill closes that loophole, and it restores fairness to the system. Honourable Speaker, rural and northern Manitobans know this is reality. A farmer wakes to find someone siphoning fuel. A homeowner confronts thieves in a shed. In the scuffle, the trespasser gets hurt, and suddenly the property owner is hauled into court. That's not justice. That's re-victimization. Bill 222 ensures that someone who trespasses with criminal intent cannot sue the homeowner for injuries sustained while committing a crime. Only in extreme cases where the property owner's actions are willful, grossly disappropriate, and lead to a criminal conviction would liability apply. This isn't a stand your ground law. It doesn't excuse violence. It restores balance between law-abiding Manitobans and those who exploit the system. Honorable Speaker, property crime is rising in communities like Swan River, Flin Flon, The Paw, McCreary, Roblin, Inglis, break-ins, fuel theft, copper theft. These are daily realities that threaten rural livelihoods. Government press releases about getting tough on crime mean little if citizens still feel unsafe. This bill gives honest Manitobans some assurance that the law is on their side. It recognizes that farms and rural properties carry real risks. Machinery, livestock, rough terrain, and those who trespass assume those risks. Alberta has already led the way with similar legislation, the trespass statutes protecting law-abiding property owners. Amendment Act of 2019. It works, and Bill 222 mirrors that success. It keeps Manitobans in step with our prairie neighbors who are standing up for rural families and business owners. Honorable Speaker, Bill 222 doesn't change the criminal code or excuse reckless behavior. It ensures that property owners acting in good faith to protect their homes aren't treated like criminals. Right now, people across rural Manitoba are installing cameras and new locks because they've lost faith that the system will protect them. This bill helps to rebuild that trust. It sends a clear message. The court exists to defend victims, not reward offenders. If you break the law, you don't profit from it. Honorable Speaker, this is more than legal language. It's about restoring common sense. Manitobans who rise before dawn to feed cattle, run shops, or protect their families deserve to know that their government values their rights. Bill 222 provides that reassurance. It protects property owners from unfair lawsuits, respects the rule of law, and it reinforces the principle that responsibility lies with those who choose to commit crimes, not those who suffer from them. So I say to the members of the House, let us stand with Manitoba farmers, business owners, and homeowners. Let us pass Bill 222 and protect those who protect what they've worked for all their lives. Honorable Speaker, this bill is about fairness, accountability, and respect for the law-abiding Manitoban. It's about ensuring that justice serves the victim, not the trespasser. And I urge everyone in the legislature today to support Bill 222, and let's get it passed. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It is an honor to rise today to speak to Bill 222, the Criminal Trespassers Act and Amendment to the Occupiers Liability Act. Honourable Speaker, this bill talks about the safety in the community, safety for the homeowners. But this is also, when we talk about safety, Honourable Speaker, we have to start with one simple truth. Real safety comes from real investment in people, in communities, and in the justice system that protect them. not slogans, not empty promises, real concrete actions. And that is what our government is delivering. Just yesterday, our Minister of Justice announced $2 million to expand Manitoba's operational communication center. The command center that handles every emergency call for RCMP services in our province. That investment means 6 new RCMP officers, 10 new public service dispatches, and 24/7 risk management support for law enforcement. Again, Honorable Speaker, it's an absolute honor to speak to Bill 222. It means when someone in the rural Manitoba picks up the phone to report a violent crime, a crash, or break-in, there's someone on the other end ready to respond. That is how you keep communities safe, by bringing law enforcement the tools they need to do their jobs. And that is the difference between our approach and the approach of the former PC government. From 2017 right through 2023, PCs froze police funding in Manitoba. Not one increase, not a penny more for Winnipeg Police, Brandon Police, or the RCMP. They left police forces to struggle with rising crime, high cost, and fewer officers on the ground. And Manitobans paid the price. Under the former PC government, crime went up. Communities were left to fend for themselves with the government set on their hands. And so in 2023, Manitoba voters decided that the PCs and their soft on crime approach wasn't worth their time. That's why, this is important to talk about Bill 22. This is, again, want to highlight what the Conservative haven't done to protect the communities, to protect the rural homeowners. Communities were left to fend for themselves while the government sat on their hands. So when we came into office, we made it clear that safety matters. We increased funding to all the municipality police forces by 28%, the largest increase in decades. And we didn't stop there. We made sure police service will get a 2% annual boost to make sure law enforcement has what it needs, not just today, but tomorrow too. Because keeping Manitobans safe isn't the partisan issue, it is a basic responsibility of the government. We have backed that up with the record investment. 24 new Winnipeg police officers dedicated to the community policing, 12 already on the street, 12 more coming this spring. $4 million for bail reform to keep violent offenders off the street. $2 million for the Manitoba Security Rebate Program, helping small businesses protect their property and their employees. Honorable Speaker, actually that misspoke. It's $10 million, not $2 million, that investment we are doing in the community. $2.9 million for electronic ankle monitoring, a program that former PC government canceled back in 2017. We brought it back because Manitobans deserve a justice system that actually worked to keep them safe. And that investment has paid off. It's been praised by law enforcement, including the National Police Federation, who called it I quote, a direct response to what our communities have been asking for, end quote. That is what action looks like, Honorable Speaker. We have also taken real steps to arrest retail theft, a major concern for the families and small business owners. We engaged with 187 local businesses through our retail theft initiative to understand their needs. And those efforts have already led to a 981 arrests and over $122,000 in recovered merchandise. We also took long-bladed weapons off store shelves and worked with online retailers to stop people from buying them legally. These are practical, common sense steps that make people safer in their communities, be here in Winnipeg or rural Manitoba. We have invested in the justice system because we knew safety doesn't stop with an arrest. It depends on justice systems that is fair, efficient, and accessible. We have hired 35 new Crown attorneys, given them a fair deal, and added over 20 new court support staff. We have reduced court clerk vacancies by 85% in Winnipeg and 69% across Manitoba. Our courts are now better staffed, better supported, and better able to protect Manitobans. Honorable Speaker, I remember member from Legislature was talking about unintended consequences with this bill. And also, Halloween is just around the corner. Tomorrow is Halloween. So this is where those unintended consequences the member from Legislature was talking about. We have also seen, it was in the news recently, I think it's called the Ding Dong Ditch. That was in the news, and that's unattended consequences can happen with that as well. And also in my own community in the Maples, Honorable Speaker, we have a group called the Amber Trail Amber Gate Community Facebook group. And I have seen it there as well, Honorable Speaker. Kids playing games with this ding dong ditch. And somebody told me this is a national trend. You are hearing it not only here, but you are also hearing folks from other provinces, even from like far away, such as even in India. So this is, again, we don't want to see someone getting killed with this. Some kids playing prank on the houses. I know they shouldn't do this. This would be studying at home or playing in the community, maybe playing soccer, basketball, or something else, but not to do these things. But they're kids, right? So they do these things just for the fun, but they shouldn't do that. And that's why this bill is, I don't see those.
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Spruce Woods.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'd like to briefly talk about the Criminal Trespass, Bill 222, the Criminal Trespassers Act, and amendments to the Occupiers Liability Act. Under the current legislation and common law, an occupier may be held liable for an injury or a death of an individual trespassing on their property. These amendments will protect an occupier from a civil liability for injury or death of any reason short of a willful and grossly disproportionate act that results in an occupier being convicted of an offense under the Criminal Code Canada that is prosecuted by indictment. The amendment does not allow for a person to set booby traps and create a dangerous situation where the intent is to harm an individual. Amendment does not alter any criminal liability that an individual may face. This is not a stand your ground law. The criminal code and common law rules regarding self-defense and protection of property are unchanged. This bill stops criminals from attempting to use the courts to benefit from their criminal actions at the expense of their victims and the public. This does not excuse criminal behavior on the part of a property owner. This bill does not promote vigilant justice, nor does it condone or encourage property owners using violent and dangerous means to protect property. It is important that Manitobans not be re-victimized by criminals. This government seems to be unwilling or unable to stop the increase in violent and property crimes across this province. This is a small but important step to restoring the balance between the law-abiding Manitobans and the criminals that continue to take advantage of the system and continue to re-offend. This situation just in McGregor highlights the need of a law like this. Could you imagine a situation where after victimizing a household, the perpetrators injure themselves while attempting to escape, then turn around and sue the property owner for their injuries? The judiciary have called for this legislation across Canada. So we need, as Manitobans today, to protect the people, the property owners, the public, from the criminals. We need to pass Bill 222.
Honorable Minister of Business, Mining, Trade and Job Creation.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm glad to take a few minutes to put some words on the record regarding the Criminal Trespassers Act and amendments to the Occupiers Liability Act, Bill 222. But before I begin, Honorable Speaker, I just want to take a minute, given there's a few notable events coming up and that this bill gives us a chance to talk about public safety, that Halloween is tomorrow, October 31st. I know a lot of kids and families will be out in communities right across the province enjoying the Halloween festivities. I know in my neighborhood, it's been a bit of a revival in Halloween post-pandemic. A lot of kids and families going out enjoying the trick-or-treating activities. But I want to encourage community members to be safe out there. So if you can, get your kids to wear those reflective either materials or lights so they can be seen by vehicles. They have flashlights, it's great. Make sure you supervise them as best able, and that when they get those treats and candies home, that you give it a little review and once over to make sure anything your kids are going to be eating and enjoying those treats, you do so in a safe way. So with respect to the Criminal Trespassers Act and Bill 22, I also want to make sure that we talk about the purpose of this bill and make sure that we understand what the opposition members are bringing forward in this private member's bill. It is, the purpose is to establish this bill, the Criminal Trespassers Act, and make amendments to the Occupiers and Liabilities Act. It would make changes in a few ways. And first, in Schedule 1, initially it would make laws governing civil claims for damages made by trespassers against occupiers of the premises. In Schedule 1 of it really talks about, it bars lawsuits against an occupier for the premises for the injury or death of a person who is 12 years of age or older and who trespasses for the purpose of committing a crime. The occupier is liable to a criminal trespasser only if the actions are willful and grossly disproportionate in the circumstances and results of the occupier being criminally convicted. And then amendments are made to ensure that the time period for filing the claim against the occupier is extended until after any criminal charges against the occupier have been resolved. Schedule 2 of the amendment is the provision that currently limits an occupier's duty of care to, in specified circumstances, it expanded to apply to any persons aged 12 or older who enters an occupier's premises without permission. Now, I just wanted to put that on the record there. Some comments around the changes that are proposed here before we get into the debates on this bill. And it's important to also note that PC government is bringing, opposition is bringing forward this motion, and it's important to understand the context of why they're bringing this forward with respect to the actions they took while they were in government. And when they had that opportunity in government, and not only is it noteworthy that they didn't bring in this piece of legislation or this amendment, but that they also had, I think, a pretty poor track record when it comes to dealing with crime and dealing with community and public safety. What we saw under the PC government was increased funding pressures on those community safety organizations and on law enforcement. We saw a funding freeze under the former government, which led to all municipalities which fund the police forces having an austerity approach under the former government. It's a 28% increase. And so that's a very significant impact that we've seen as a result of their mismanagement of public safety. And so this coming on the heels of a failed time in government, I think is noteworthy context to add into the conversation. Also, Honourable Speaker, I just want to also take a moment to say that coming up this weekend is also the shift to daylight savings time, away from daylight savings. And so people in Manitoba will be shifting their clocks. Of course, it's fall time, so we fall back an hour. And I think we also see an increased risk of whether that's stress, whether that is a concern for things going on as a result of the time change. We also see an increase of traffic incidents and car accidents and damages on our roads and highways. And so I want to just urge Manitobans to be safe out there, both during Halloween tomorrow and also during daylight savings coming up this weekend, and that we take care to make sure we keep our community and ourselves as safe as possible. Now back to Bill 222. We want to make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes of the former PC government when it comes to crime. We know that crime exploded under the former PC government. And quite frankly, they don't have a track record of taking any significant steps to resolve the crime that exploded under their record. We know that they scrapped the ankle monitor program, that claiming it wasn't successful, but they clearly didn't replace it with anything of any substance. And so it's a huge gap on those folks who we want to make sure are following through on their conditions of being released. The ankle monitor program plays a role in that. We know that they froze funding to municipalities and agencies, that they looked around and decided that municipal police forces didn't really help. You know, that there was no interaction and no increase to supports for those rural and local police forces. And then certainly we know that supporting police officers was not something that they really cared about or took any actions to support. Now, since we've been in office, in the short 2 years that it's been, we've already taken some significant steps to support security through funding additional police officers, and specifically here in the city of Winnipeg, there's 55 new officers that are patrolling now because of our actions that weren't on the streets in the former PC government. Our members opposite talk about the impacts in rural community that Bill 222 would have, and member opposite mentions farmers and wanting to protect farmers. And so we know in those areas RCMP officers play a significant role. And I also want to give a shout out at this moment to say that in those rural and northern areas where RCMP are doing the good job of protecting the wide-ranging potential challenges that might be facing, criminal activity that might be facing rural and northern communities. I also want to give a shout out to conservation officers who also work to protect community members with respect to wildlife and other instances where people and community members might feel unsafe, might be in dangerous situations, and make sure that we are protecting all parts of our community and society. But when it comes to the RCMP and the record there, members opposite don't have a leg to stand on. It's important for us to make sure we support those law enforcement officials and those agencies by putting together real solutions, not just dealing with a bill like this, which deals with things after the fact of criminal activity, but how do we support communities by preventing criminal activities in the first place, which is why I'm proud to be a part of a team with the Minister of Justice who took long-bladed weapons off the store shelves, making sure that we reduce the opportunities and the weapons with which the criminals would have to commit violent acts. This is a proactive step that helps all Manitobans, whether you're in the city, whether you're in your rural, a suburban community, or whether you're in a rural or northern community. You can feel that feel and know that our government is taking real action to address violent crime in a preventative way, not like Bill 222, which does it in a after the fact way, after there's been a criminal activity, but in a proactive way. And I think that's part of our key solution to both supporting law enforcement and making sure we get tough on crime and criminal activity, but also that we work to get to the root causes of crime and preventative measures that deal with criminal activity. And so we know that supporting a new RCMP officers is part of that solution, and we're very happy to do that and work in tandem and collaboratively with members from law enforcement. And that's why we've had really good response in working with folks from AMM, for example, and they've supported our initiatives to reduce crime. And they've supported some of our work to increase those frontline officers and deal with repeat and prolific offenders in a meaningful and substantive way, and expanding those responsibilities that we have. We think that's the right approach. We think it's an approach that both takes into account preventative measures and tough law enforcement measures, making sure that people who do the good work of protecting our community have the resources they need, and not what we propose in Bill 222.
Time has expired. The honourable member for Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise today to put a few words on the record to Bill 222, the Criminal Trespassers Act and amendments to the Occupiers Liability Act. You know, at its core, this bill claims to protect property owners. But, Honourable Speaker, the law must never place property above people or human life. That is exactly what this legislation risks doing. Our government believes in keeping Manitobans safe in their homes, their businesses, and their communities. But safety is not achieved through fear or punishment. It is achieved through smart investments, fair laws, and justice that applies equally to everyone, not just those who own property. Our government is taking real action to make communities safer. Just yesterday, we announced a $2 million investment to expand Manitoba's Operational Communication Centre, strengthening the RCMP's ability to respond to violent crime and critical incidences across our great province. That investment will add 6 new RCMP officers and 10 dispatchers, providing 24-hour operational support so Manitobans can get help faster when they call 911. That is real action, Honourable Speaker. It's not a slogan, it's not politics. When the former PC government was in power, they froze police funding for 6 years, from 2017 until the day they were voted out. They never once increased funding for RCMP, the Winnipeg Police, or Brandon Police Services. Their inactions had real consequences. Manitobans saw rising crime, fewer officers, and communities that felt abandoned. Under their watch, the Winnipeg Police lost 55 officers. That's 55 fewer people patrolling our streets, 55 fewer people helping victims, 55 fewer people protecting families. When the PCs had the chance to act, they turned their backs. In 2017, they scrapped the ankle monitoring program, a tool used to track violent offenders, claiming it was ineffective. In 2018, they froze funding again. In 2019, still nothing. In 2020 and 2021, during some of the most difficult years for public safety, they did not lift a finger. And in 2022 and 2023, when Manitobans begged for help, they ignored them. Manitoba saw a government that was soft on crime, but hard on communities. More interested in blaming victims than funding police. In 2023, Manitobans decided they had had enough. Our government has taken a different path, and we have made historic investments to strengthen law enforcement and public safety. We increased funding for all municipal police forces by 28%, the largest increase in Manitoba's history. That's our government, Honourable Speaker. We introduced 2% funding escalators so police never again face years of freezes and cuts. We invested $4 million in bail reform, $2 million in the Manitoba Security Rebate Program, and nearly $3 million to expand electronic ankle monitoring, a program now endorsed by the National Police Federation as a model for Canada. We hired 35 new Crown attorney positions, hired 20 new court support staff so that justice is not delayed or denied. We provided $1.5 million for downtown safety action plan, new RCMP units in Swan Valley, and safety programs in Brandon and in Thompson. Those are real investments, Honourable
Order,
Speaker.
please. If I could ask the member to tie his comments back to the bill we're discussing. I realize sometimes we try to paint a picture, but if you could tie it back to the bill. Please, the Honourable Member for Thompson.
Thank you for your guidance, Honourable Speaker. I am sort of an artist trying to paint a picture here, but it does tie back to Bill 222. Bill 222 does not make our community safer, Honourable Speaker. Instead, it opens the door to dangerous interpretations of justice, particularly when it comes to Indigenous peoples and rural property. This bill would bar lawsuits by trespassers injured or killed while committing crime unless the occupier's actions are extreme. That they result in a criminal conviction. That might sound reasonable on paper, Honourable Speaker, but in practice, it risks justifying violence and reinforcing systemic inequities in our justice system. But, Honourable Speaker, I cannot speak to this bill without remembering Colton Bushy, a 22-year-old Cree man from Red Pheasant First Nation. In August 2016, Colton was shot in the back of the head, killed on a farm near Biggar, Saskatchewan. His death should have sparked conversations about racism, justice, and reconciliation. But instead, too many voices, including official ones, shifted their focus to property rights and rural crime. Colton was painted as a trespasser, and that's what this bill does, Honourable Speaker. As though it somehow justifies the loss of life. That is why this bill is troubling. It sends a message, intentional or not, that property rights outweigh human rights. that some lives are less valuable than others if they cross that invisible line. That is why we cannot let Bill 222 pass. We cannot allow what happened there happen here in Manitoba. We cannot pass a law that emboldens vigilantism and deepens mistrust between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Manitobans. To pass Bill 222 would be to say that we have learned nothing, that we are willing to repeat the same mistakes and entrench injustice in the name of property. Honourable Speaker, our government is showing that there is a better way than Bill 222. We are strengthening our justice system by hiring prosecutors, reforming bail, expanding ankle monitoring, and working with police forces across the province and communities to tackle the root cause of crime, which this bill does not do, Honourable Speaker. We're tackling addiction, poverty, and inequity. We're not pitting Manitobans against one another. We are building a province where everyone, no matter their background, income, or where they live, can feel safe and valued. We're working with Indigenous leaders, municipalities, and law enforcement to ensure the justice system serves everyone fairly. We are building safer streets without sacrificing justice or compassion, which is what Bill 222 does. Manitobans deserve better than empty gestures and divisive bills like this one. We will not solve rural crime or community safety by passing legislation that risks repeating tragedies of the past. We must build laws that value human life above all else. Laws rooted in fairness, empathy, accountability. That is the work our government is doing every day, not just through words, Honourable Speaker, but through record investment in police, record investment in justice, and investment in Manitobans. Real safety comes from strong communities, not from fear. So, Honourable Speaker, I will not support Bill 222. I will stand with Manitobans who believe that justice should protect everyone, not just those with property lines to defend. Egwisa, Honourable Speaker, thank you.
The honourable member for Fort Richmond.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Bill 222, the Criminal Trespassers Act and amendments to the Occupiers Liability Act, has been debated quite substantially in this House, and many of my colleagues have shared a lot of good thoughts on it. And today I'm pleased to rise to put some words on this bill. Honourable Speaker, this bill raises important questions about safety, responsibility, and fairness. While its stated purpose is to address issues of liability and trespassing, we must consider the broader impact it may have on Manitobans and the message it sends about how we value both safety and justice. Bill 222 would establish a new Criminal Trespassers Act and amend the Occupiers Liability Act. It would prevent lawsuits against the property occupier for injury or death of a person aged 12 or older who trespasses for the purpose of committing a crime, unless the occupier's actions are willful, grossly disproportionate, and result in a criminal conviction. It will also amend the Limitations Act so that civil claims are delayed until criminal charges are resolved. Honourable Speaker, every Manitoban deserves to feel safe in their home, workplace, and community. But safety cannot come from reactive or divisive measures. It must come from thoughtful, evidence-based investments in public safety and justice that address both the causes and the consequences of crime. That is exactly what our government is doing. Since taking office, we have made record investments in law enforcement and community safety. After years of frozen funding under the previous government, we increased the funding to all municipal police services by 28%, the largest increase in Manitoba's history. We also introduced a 2% annual escalator so police forces have stable and predictable funding into the future. While the former government froze police budgets from 2017 onward and cut 55 Winnipeg police positions, our government is rebuilding. When law enforcement is properly supported, communities are safer and more resilient. We are also hiring 24 new Winnipeg police officers dedicated to community policing, 12 already serving and 12 more arriving this spring. These officers will enhance visibility, build trust, and strengthen public safety across the city. Honorable Speaker, our government has also reinstated and expanded the electronic ankle monitoring program that was canceled in 2017. With a $2.9 million investment, this program now helps law enforcement monitor offenders and prevent repeat offenses. It has been endorsed by police leadership as an effective tool that directly responds to community needs. Honorable Speaker, our government's approach to public safety is guided by fairness, prevention, and partnership. We are focused on practical steps that support both law enforcement and community well-being. We believe that protecting property and protecting people must go hand in hand, and that laws must be clear, fair, and consistently applied. Terms like grossly disproportionate must be defined carefully to ensure fairness in our justice system and to prevent confusion or misuse. Manitobans expect leadership that makes them safer through real action, not symbolic legislation. They want a government that invests in police services, supports communities, and strengthens the justice system. That is the path we are on, building safer, stronger communities across Manitoba. Honorable Speaker, our commitment is clear. We will continue to provide law enforcement with the resources they need, ensure our courts are fully staffed and effective, and create conditions where Manitobans can feel safe in their homes, workplaces, and neighborhoods. Through prevention—
Order, please. When this matter is again before the House, the honourable member will have 5 minutes remaining, the hour being 11 o'clock. We now move on to private members' resolutions. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
On House business.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader on House business.
Honourable Speaker, pursuant to Rule 34.8, I am announcing that the private member's resolution to be considered on the next Thursday of private members' business will be one previously put forward by the Honourable Member for Borderland. The title of this resolution is Right to Defend Your Home and Family.
Been announced that pursuant to Rule 34(8), the private member's resolution to be considered on the next Thursday of private members' business will be the one previously put forward by the Honourable Member for Borderland, and the title of the resolution is The Right to Defend Your Home and Family. The Honourable House Leader, official Opposition House Leader.
Something like that. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Could you please canvass the House for leave to allow me to call Bill 225, the Public Schools Amendment Act, Universal Screening for Learning Disabilities, for concurrence and third reading debate, despite Rule 24.6 and despite the House is currently in the private members' hour allocated for private members' resolution, and not to recognize the clock until all members have spoken. that wish to, and the question is put.
Is there leave to allow the official opposition House Leader to call for concurrence and third reading debate of Bill 225, the Public Schools Amendment Act, universal screening for learning disabilities, with the House to not see the clock until the question has been put, despite Rule 24(6) and despite it being the hour allocated for private members' resolutions? Is there leave? Leave has been denied. We will now move on to private members' resolutions. The resolution before us this morning is resolution number 23, the right to defend your home and family. The honourable member for Borderland.
Honourable Speaker, I move, seconded by the member for Brandon West. Therefore, be it resolved that the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba call on the federal government to amend the criminal code to clearly establish that a person is justified in using reasonable force, including deadly force, to protect themselves, their family, others, or their home when an individual unlawfully enters or attempts to enter their dwelling and is reasonably perceived to pose a threat to life or safety.
Been moved by the honourable member for Brandon, or by the honourable member for Borderland, seconded by the honourable member for Brandon West, that therefore be it resolved that the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba call on the federal government to amend the criminal code to clearly establish that a person is justified in using reasonable force, including deadly force, to protect themselves, their family, others, or their home when an individual unlawfully enters or attempts to enter their dwelling and is reasonably perceived to pose a threat to life or safety. The honourable member for Brandon West. The honourable member for Borderland.
Honourable Speaker, I rise this morning to introduce a resolution entitled "The Right to Defend Home and Family." This is something Canadians and Manitobans have been asking for a long, long time. Too often, we've seen those who are forced to defend themselves or their loved ones treated like criminals, while the real criminal goes free. The individual who has illegally broken into someone's home, their place of safety, and destroyed their sense of safety in the place that should be most sacrosanct, goes free. And the person who lives there, who belongs there, the person who loves that home and the people in that home, the person who is trying to defend that home, that safe place, and those in it, gets charged as a criminal. That is not justice. And that's why I say today, with this resolution, that a person is justified in using reasonable force, including deadly force, to protect themselves, their family, and others in the home when an individual unlawfully enters or attempts to enter that dwelling. Now, I'll be very clear, because I know that those opposed to this common sense resolution are going to try to muddy the waters by talking about a bunch of stuff that doesn't have anything to do with this specific resolution. No one is advocating for a shoot first, ask questions later approach. That's not what this resolution is about. No one is saying If someone steps foot on your property, you should have carte blanche to just blow them away. What this common sense resolution does do is call upon this government to call on the Government of Canada, who are the only ones who can change the criminal code, to take the onus off of the law-abiding homeowner whose space and safety has been violated and put it on the criminal where it belongs. Responsibility for incidents of this nature should lie solely with the criminal who illegally enters someone's home. They should assume the risks associated therewith, not the person who rightfully lives there. And it's happening more and more. We all know that under this government and the current federal government, crime is rising. And that's what happens when you let bad guys out on bail. The same guys out on bail over and over again to reoffend. Violent crime has exploded across Canada, including in this province. We read about it every day, in schools, on buses, and in people's homes. There was a story a few weeks back of the home invasion here in Winnipeg, the violence done to an elderly couple in their own home. The case in Thompson, a man, his partner, and 6 children in the home. A gang of people enter and stab the man multiple times. Imagine the terror for those kids. Imagine the trauma. Just earlier this month, a Winnipeg man whose home-based business was broken into was shot 7 times in the leg while thieves made off with over $1 million in valuables. And this man and his family are now leaving Canada and moving back to India, saying they don't feel safe here. There's the recent case from Lindsay, Ontario, just this summer, where a 44-year-old man confronted an intruder in his home who was armed with a crossbow. The homeowner grabbed a knife and a fight broke out. The intruder was seriously injured and airlifted to hospital, while the 44-year-old homeowner was charged with aggravated assault. Honourable Speaker, I know of a case a few years ago in Winnipeg on a sunny afternoon in the nice part of town. A criminal followed the daughter of a family home from school. He forced his way into the home, and with a gun, he took the family hostage. He took them into the basement and made members of that family do unspeakable things to each other. Hours of this. Then around 10 o'clock, the father and son managed to get free and overpower the man. A fight started. The mother fled, naked and terrified, to a neighbor's house, and the neighbor came and helped the men subdue the criminal, at the same time ensuring no revenge was taken against him, while his wife called the police. When the police arrived, they took the man to jail. But guess who else went to jail? The father, the son, and the neighbor. The father and son were fighting for their lives and the dignity of the mother and daughter. The neighbor was just there to help. They still got arrested, spent hours in jail. That is not right. The criminal should assume the responsibility and, by extension, the liability, not the person who lawfully dwells there, for whom that home is their place of safety. In homes all across Manitoba, there are many Manitobans who understand that this is just common sense. Our sense of justice, of moral law and natural law tells us that we ought to protect what is pure, beautiful, and innocent from harm and evil. The reality is that we don't have police officers standing guard over us 24/7 at the end of each of our driveways. You are your own first responder. Sadly, in the vast majority of cases, by the time police arrive on the scene, all that is left for them to do is to conduct the investigation and lay charges. That's it. I cite a tragic case from Lorette only 4 years ago, where a senior couple had their home broken into at 1:15 in the morning. They called 911, and the RCMP from the St. Pierre Joly detachment raced to respond, but by the time they got there, the phone line had been cut, and they found the couple stabbed to death in the home. Manitobans should have the legal right to defend themselves in their homes, period. Now, members opposite are going to say, well, they already do. This resolution is redundant. And I say, no, it is not. Because while the Criminal Code of Canada does allow for individuals to use self-defense, the conditions set to govern the use thereof are simply not realistic and as a result are unreasonable. 9 questions. They're good questions. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. That is to discern and differentiate between reasonable self-defense and unreasonable violence. But here's the problem, Honourable Speaker. These 9 existing conditions are completely reasonable after the fact, but they are completely unreasonable and unrealistic in that moment. No one in a terrifying split second, potentially life and death situation is going to waste their time trying to call to mind what those 9 things are before they protect their kids, protect their spouse, other vulnerable people, and nor are we saying, as we were saying with this resolution, should they have to. Here are the only questions you should have to ask. Number 1, is this person illegally in my home or trying to illegally enter my home? And number 2, do I believe they present a threat? That's it. 2 simple questions. Are they in my house illegally? Do they present a threat? And the reality is, the result is going to be the same whether the law is changed or not. Brave Canadians and Manitobans, good fathers, mothers, and friends will do what they need to do to protect their homes, protect their kids. They're not thinking about the 9 questions. They're thinking, I need to protect my kids. I need to survive so I can make sure my kids are cared for and safe. And I will do whatever it takes to make sure that happens. When people are backed into a corner, when it's life and death, Manitobans are going to do what they need to do. And by the way, Canadian juries have consistently upheld their right to do so and acquitted those charged. This resolution calls on the provincial and federal government to affirm that law-abiding citizens, folks just trying to do the right thing, protecting their loved ones, their kids and moms and dads, shouldn't and won't have to go through the indignity of arrest, indictment, and trial for a case that should never have been brought. The home should be sacred. It should be respected. Those who live there should always be safe and feel safe. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
A question period of up to 10 minutes will be held. Any questions may be addressed in the following sequence. The first question may be asked by a member from another party. Any subsequent questions must follow a rotation between parties. Each independent member may ask 1 question, and no question or answer shall exceed 45 seconds. The floor is now open for questions. The honourable member for Kildonan River East.
Honourable Speaker, under our NDP government, there are more police officers on the streets. We're recruiting new officers after the former failed PC government let 55 police officers go through their cuts and inaction. My question for the member opposite is why he refused to protect Manitobans and their property and instead decided to get rid of those 55 police officers.
The honourable member for Borderland.
I'd urge that NDP member to do a little bit of self-reflection. In their very first year in office, the number of homicides in rural Manitoba nearly doubled from 30 in 2023 to 55 in 2024. The irony of saying something like that when Winnipeg has the highest violent crime rate in Canada, more than double the national average. Again, I'd urge members of the NDP to reflect and also to ask questions that are relevant to this resolution.
The honourable member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I would really like to thank the member for Borderland for bringing this extremely important resolution forward, calling on this government to talk with the federal government about this law. this opportunity to protect Manitobans. So can the member explain how this legislation provides greater protection for law-abiding property owners against unfair civil lawsuits from criminal trespassing as well as their safety?
The honourable member for Borderland.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And unfortunately, the Minister of Justice was making so much noise that while I am in close proximity to the member for Brandon West, I couldn't hear all of his question. But essentially, the resolution simplifies this matter for Manitobans by reducing those 9 questions in sections 34 and 35 of the Criminal Code of Canada to essentially 2. Is this person illegally in my home or trying to illegally enter my home? And number 2, do I believe they present a threat? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Innovation and New Technology.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I do have a question. One of the examples the member from Borderland used was the tragic case from Lorette 4 years ago. Just want to clarify who might have been the government in Manitoba at that time and why the appropriate officials at that point didn't raise this important issue.
The honourable member for Borderland.
Yeah, of course, the NDP are going to try to try to turn this into a political issue. But I'd encourage them. This shouldn't be political. This is about protecting innocent life. This is about allowing Manitobans to protect their loved ones when police are not able to make it there. As I said in that case, the police did everything they could to get there. They got there, and when they got there, sadly, there were 2 bodies on the ground. The point I was making is that police, far too often, it's just the way it is, are not able to respond in time in these split-second life and death situations. That's what I was talking about.
The honourable member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I'd like to start by thanking the member from Borderland for bringing this great common sense resolution forward. And can that member please explain a bit about how the soft on crime policies of this failed government are contributing to the epidemic of violence we see across our province under this NDP?
The honourable member for Borderland.
I thank the member for La Vérendrye, my friend, for that question. Great question. And yes, violent crime has exploded across this province, across this country, but in particular in Manitoba. We've seen just recently some tragic news stories, and I talked about the one just briefly where this family had their home-based business broken into. 2 of the men in that family were shot. Both were shot. One was shot 7 times in the leg, nearly lost his life, and is now recovering. And they're saying they're leaving Canada because they don't feel safe here. There are other stories that I have as well, and I'd be happy to table those. But I think Manitobans feel less safe, and they tell us consistently, surveys show, they feel less and less safe.
Member's time has expired. Honourable member for Kildonan River East.
Honourable Speaker, the member opposite is conveniently glazing over their years of cuts and mismanagement. If Manitobans were so important to protect, why, when police forces have the resources to do their job, that's why our NDP government brought in a 30% increase since taking office for all municipal law enforcement organizations, with regular increases going forward. It is the needed relief after the former PC government froze funding for the entire time they were in government. So why did the PCs refuse to protect Manitobans and their property and instead decided to freeze funding for all law enforcement in Manitoba during their time in government?
The honourable member for Borderland.
What is this member? What do members of this NDP government have to say to victims who are assaulted in their homes? The senior couple who was stabbed in the middle of the night when their home was broken into. What do they have to tell Manitobans then? That they should hide and comply with the thieves, comply with those who are assaulting them, like that officer suggested in Ontario just recently, that the best thing to do is just to comply. Do NDP members think that innocent victims of crime, does the Minister of Justice, who we haven't heard from yet, does he think that Manitobans should simply comply with criminals?
The honourable member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I'm glad the member for Borderland brought up some cases where individuals who are only protecting their lives, their families' lives, and the dignity of their home have been arrested and charged. So does the honourable member think it's fair or just that under this government, the bad guys go free and the victims get charged?
The honourable member for Borderland.
I thank my colleague and friend, the member for Brandon West, for that great question. I thank him for his years of service as a police officer. And I thank as well all the police officers across Manitoba and across this country who do great work. The reality is they're the ones who arrive on scene and have to deal with the grisly results of outcome of a rampaging criminal. And so I thank them all for their service. But absolutely, he has brought forward cases. We've talked in this chamber, this PC team has, about the sad case of Kelly Verway, many others. We think of the tragedy at Hollowwater First Nation. These are acts committed by repeat offenders, people who are out on bail.
His time has expired. The honourable member for Kildonan River East.
Honourable Speaker, has the member opposite considered how dangerous this kind of rhetoric can be when we've seen in Canada that claims of defending property have led to deadly, racially charged outcomes like the killing of Colton Bushy? What assurances do the members opposite have that this PMR is not going to make those tragedies more likely instead of preventing them?
The honourable member for Borderland.
Yeah, unfortunately, NDP are trying to race bait there, and I would just say, in the case, and they cited the case of Colton Bushy. In that case, the jury system rendered its verdict. Gerald Stanley, who was the victim in that case, who we never hear them mention his name, he was the farmer whose yard was repeatedly plundered by thieves, and he was acquitted by a jury, and there was no appeal. So I think the members opposite need to do a little more reflection. And by the way, this is about protecting innocent life. This is about protecting innocent Manitobans and allowing them to do what they need to do to protect their loved ones. And I'd urge members of the NDP government to get on board.
The honourable member for Laver Andre.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I'd like to once again thank the member from Borderland for trying to clarify the purpose of this resolution in that last answer. But since the NDP don't seem to get it at all, can the honourable member please clarify the very specific parameters of what we're asking for with this resolution?
The honourable member for Borderland.
I thank the member for that question. Essentially, what we're saying is that the onus should be put on the criminal who's breaking in to the home. The government should have to prove that the liability should be on the criminal, not on the homeowner, essentially, and take those 9 tests, those 9 questions that are laid out in sections 34 and 35 of the Criminal Code, and reduce it to 2, and give Manitobans the right, the ability to defend themselves and their loved ones. Manitobans know this. They hear stories of violent crime and all the rest, and they say, well, when it comes to protecting my loved ones, if this is the situation, better to be judged by 12 than to be carried by 6.
The honourable member for Kildonan River East.
Honourable Speaker, why are the PCs pushing a motion that encourages Manitobans to take law into their own hands instead of focusing on real public safety solutions like hiring more?
Order, please. My mistake. The time for question period had expired. The floor is now open for debate. The honourable member for Transcona.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise today to address this progressive Conservative resolution calling on the federal government to amend the Criminal Code in the name of so-called self-defense or stand-your-ground protection. Let's be honest. This motion is not about protecting families. It's about politics. It's an imported idea that belongs elsewhere, not in Manitoba. It is dangerous, unnecessary, and completely out of touch with the real work being done to keep Manitobans safe. Honourable Speaker, we already have laws in Canada that protect people who act in self-defence. Sections 34 and 35 of the Criminal Code are clear. Canadians have the right to use reasonable force to protect themselves, their families, and their property. The law already balances rights and responsibilities. What this PMR proposes would upend that balance. It would encourage split-second judgments under fear, and it would make tragedy more likely, not less. Speaker, is this truly the Manitoba way? Is this the legacy we want to leave for our children? Manitobans are known for their resilience, their kindness, and their sense of community. Friendly Manitoba. We are a province of neighbours who look out for one another, not a province that thrives on fear or conflict. Yet this PMR risks undermining those very values. Let us take a moment to reflect on what this resolution implies. It suggests that the path to safety is through escalation, through confrontation. But research and common sense tells us otherwise. Confrontation often leads to more harm, not less. It creates a cycle of fear and violence that is difficult to break. Honourable Speaker, this is not just a theoretical concern. Across Canada, we've seen examples of situations where confrontations has led to tragic outcomes. In some cases, individuals have taken matters into their own hands, only to find themselves in legal trouble, or worse, in harm's way. Consider the case of a homeowner who, in a moment of fear, confronts an intruder. What begins as an attempt to protect their family can quickly escalate into a dangerous and unpredictable situation. In 2020, the consequences can be devastating, not just for the individuals involved, but for entire communities. Is this the future we want for Manitobans? A future where fear dictates our actions? Where we feel compelled to confront danger rather than seek safer, more constructive solutions? Honourable Speaker, let us also consider the unintended consequences of this PMR. By promoting confrontation, we risk normalizing a culture of fear and suspicion. We risk creating divisions in our communities, where neighbours see each other as threats rather than allies. And let us not forget the impact on vulnerable populations. For some Manitobans, particularly those from marginalized communities, this resolution could exacerbate existing inequalities. It could lead to situations where individuals feel targeted or unsafe simply because of who they are. We must also consider the strain this approach could place on our justice system. Encouraging confrontation could lead to an increase in violent incidents, which in turn could overwhelm our courts and law enforcement agencies. This is not a sustainable path forward. Let us take a walk down memory lane and review the PC record. Crime rose under the PC's watch. After 7.5 years of cuts and inaction from the failed PC government, crime skyrocketed across the province, leaving families to feel unsafe. But when crime exploded under the former PC government, they decided to do nothing. 2017, they scrapped the anklet bracelet monitoring program. 2018, they froze. 2019, they looked around and decided that municipal police forces didn't need their help. 2020, no increase to funding for municipal law enforcement. 2021, still nothing. In 2022, when police forces were asking them for resources they needed after years of frozen funding, still nothing from the members opposite. In 2022, crime rose under the previous failed PC government. A 44% increase in attempted murders, a 40% increase in homicides, a 39% increase in firearms offenses, a 26% increase in vehicle thefts, a 21% increase in robberies, an 8% increase in sexual assaults, a 19% increase in breaking and entering, a 13% increase in fraud. In 2023, as they approached the election, they still decided that police officers were not worth their time. No Manitobans were safe under the PC's watch. They froze funding to every law enforcement agency in Manitoba year after year. Not only did crime get worse because of them, but under their watch, there was a net loss of 55 Winnipeg Police Services officers with a growing population across the city. Time and again, they used fear tactics and misinformation to scare Manitobans, and we can't afford to go back to those divisive ways. That is what this bill does. It divides the people in our province. But the worst part is, their failures didn't stop at the perimeters. Members opposite cut or froze funding to Brandon Police Service, Manitoba First Nations Police Service, Altona Police Service, St. Anne Police Service, Springfield, and Winkler Police Services. Instead of taking accountability for their inaction, the now opposition PCs are using their legacy of failed crime initiatives to score cheap political points. The PC government's cuts to services and supports only made the situation worse. The PCs cut funding to community safety by $2.6 million, cutting valuable funding for crime prevention, community correction, and the Family Resolution Service. The PC government refused to support restorative justice, choosing to eliminate the Restorative Resolutions Program, preventing Manitoba offenders from pursuing alternatives that would have allowed them a second chance at success. Instead of listening to the community organizations and those struggling to support Manitobans, the PC government ignored their requests to create safe consumption sites, questioning their effectiveness. Over and over, the PCs have ignored sound advice from experts and closed their eyes to solutions that would provide Manitobans with stable housing, food stability, addiction support, and mental health services. For years, Manitobans have been calling for support to address the root cause of crime in our communities. And instead of collaborating, they picked fights with law enforcement officials. They left Manitobans in vulnerable positions that made them more likely to engage in criminal activity and violent crimes. Honourable Speaker, there is a better way. Safety does not come from confrontation, it comes from prevention. It comes from building stronger communities, investing in mental health resources, and ensuring that law enforcement has the tools and training they need to respond effectively. And on this side of the House, that is what we are doing. We brought in a historic investment to ensure police officers and RCMP are there for Manitobans when they need them. This government is investing in real solutions to improve public safety. We took long-bladed weapons off store shelves and away from those who use them to commit violent crimes. We're investing in 24 new police officers, Winnipeg police officers for community policing. We announced $2 million to expand Manitoba's Operational Communications Centre to strengthen law enforcement's ability to respond to violent and critical incidents. Imagine instead of encouraging confrontation, we focused on creating environments where dangerous encounters are less likely to occur in the first place. Imagine if we invested in programs that address the root causes of crime, poverty, addiction, and lack of opportunity. These are solutions that will make a real difference, and these are the solutions that reflect the values of Manitobans.
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Brandon West.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and it's always a great privilege and a pleasure to stand up in the House and speak to very important bills and resolutions, and this one certainly falls in the upper deck of the importance level when it comes to resolutions. We're talking about the safety of individuals, we're talking about the safety of families, of kids, of children, of innocent victims, people that are victimized because of poor choices by criminals, oftentimes criminals that are out on bail and have been released time and time and time again under this failed NDP government. You know, we look at the chances for individuals to have a safe life and a safe haven, and that would be their home. Their home is a place where individuals should be able to come home, be with their family, have quality time. But no, those rights seem to be taken away from individuals by criminals who will present threats, who will present violence, who will present opportunities to cause harm to individuals while they're only doing is enjoying their home, the place that is supposed to be safe, the place that is supposed to be where they can enjoy their lives. And that's what this bill is all about, or this resolution. This resolution is about safety, and it's about protecting innocent lives all across Canada, but more importantly, here in Manitoba, where we've seen the homicide rates near double here in Manitoba over this term that the NDP has been in government. So we're talking about a climate of safety that is only getting worse since 2023 when this government was elected and came into government and not caring about the safety of individuals within our communities. And I'd highlight this with the broken promises that have been made over and over and over again. That's why there's no trust in this government, Honourable Speaker. Broken promises, headline seeking, looking for photo ops rather than real legislation and real protection of Manitobans. Case in point, we've seen growing crime, drug problems, and issues that are happening up in Swan River, Manitoba, in the Swan Valley area. So to highlight this, the minister said, let's do a press conference. Let's get out on front of this, and we'll do some photo ops, and we'll make this promise that we're going to set up a general investigation section in Swan River. That section would be charged with taking care of home invasions and 8 places where individuals are feeling unsafe in their home and crimes have happened. But you know what's happened, Honourable Speaker? Nothing. Nothing has happened on that file, and it's coming up to the 1-year anniversary. There's no GIS section stood up in Swan River. There's no safety for those members. It was simply another broken promise by this NDP government to put the veil of safety on, but really not acting on this. That's just one of many that this government has made the promise, have broken the promise, and then it ends up with the good people of Manitoba wearing those broken promises. Another one, another broken promise that actually really impacts why this resolution is so important is the broken promise on bail. I can still see it to this day. 2023, and I was running to become the member for Brandon West, and I was watching the news, and there was a debate on, and the member for Fort Rouge was in the debate, and when asked what he could do, he clearly stated bail. I can fix bail within 100 days. He said it. Well, we're 700 plus days now, and bail still has not been fixed. As a matter of fact, this premier said he could do it on his own. He didn't need any other levels of government, no other levels of government. Right. He himself could fix bail. What's happened in the last 2 weeks? We have heard the Justice Minister in Ottawa pleading with the federal government, please, please help us. I know we made a mistake. I know that we gave false narrative and false promises that we could fix bail. And now, please come and help us. Put some legislation forward at the federal level so that you can be our saving graces. And that's what's happened. It's another broken promise, Honourable Speaker, that leads to the unsafe conditions here in Manitoba. And this is why we need to bring a resolution such as this forward. We really want to protect Manitobans. That's just two off the cuff of these broken promises that are constantly being made for photo ops and for headlines rather than really looking after the protection of Manitobans. And you know, I don't actually blame the Justice Minister himself for this. It's systemic throughout the NDP government. So he is just the messenger. And unfortunately, the Justice Minister gets put in a terrible spot at times. And I know he has to listen to his premier. He has to listen to the ideology of the party, but he knows better. He knows that this resolution is extremely important, and he knows that placating to the minister, the First Minister, and to his party is not bringing action and safety to Manitoba. It is not happening. So, you know, I would implore him as the Attorney General for this province to stand alone and make great decisions about safety for the people of Manitoba and for the safety of all people. You know, people that are simply enjoying their home, that are doing nothing illegal, nothing wrong. They're simply wanting to be with family and enjoy that time, and then somebody decides to break in, take away their safety, commit horrible, horrible crimes against individuals, including and up to homicide, which I've spoken to earlier in this speech, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and that's that homicides under this government in rural Manitoba have more than doubled. And I know it's very, very difficult for the Justice Minister and for the NDP to get a grasp on that, but really what's happening is their soft on crime agenda and their partnership with the federal Liberal NDP coalition. It's manifested itself into these extreme unsafe conditions across Canada, but more importantly, right here in Manitoba. Right here in Manitoba, you look at the surveys that have been done and people are feeling less safe here in Manitoba since 2023. And you know why, Honourable Speaker? It's because of the ideology of this government and perpetrated by the Minister of Justice, bringing forward a false narrative of their safety when they know that crime is skyrocketing in the last 2 years here. It has reached a level that we have not seen before. We have a rampage of 7 youth, aged 12 to 15, just earlier this week, causing havoc across Winnipeg for retailers and for people that were simply minding their own business. And that's exactly what people are doing in their home, simply minding their own business when we have individuals breaking in, causing harm, and making sure that their life is no longer enjoyable. This is reducing the 9 questions that one must bring forward, you know, questions under the Criminal Code of Canada that are embedded in this and making individuals unsafe. So now they have to think quickly, the spur of the moment. Their lives are in jeopardy. Their lives are on the line, that of their family. It's an emotional time. It's a high intensity time, and they have to think, okay, do I meet these 9 criteria? They're never going to have the chance to do that. You know what's going to happen? They're going to be buried by 6 rather than tried by 12. And that's unfortunate that we have to see death come to individuals. We have to see grievous bodily harm to individuals because of ideology, Let's get together. Let's move this resolution forward, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Northern Relations.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. No Manitoban should ever feel unsafe in their own home. Every person, whether they live on a farm outside of Swan River, in a small town like Beausejour, or in a Winnipeg neighbourhood, deserves a peace of mind that when they lock their door at night, they and their family are safe. That's why today's debate matters, because when families experience crime, when someone breaks into a home, steals a truck, or threatens a loved one, it's just not property that's taken. It's a sense of security that can take years to rebuild. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I want to begin by saying clearly and compassionately, we stand with victims of real crime. We hear their stories. We know the fear that sets in when a 911 call feels too far away. We know the anxiety that follows when crime reaches your driveway, your shop, or your home. That fear is real, and it's our responsibility as legislators to respond with real solutions. But this PMR, this proposal to amend the criminal code and enshrine broad stand-your-ground powers, does not make Manitobans safer. It is unnecessary, it is dangerous, and it risks making tragedy more likely, not less. It suggests that safety comes from confrontation, that arming people with legal immunity will somehow deter crime. But safety, Honourable Deputy Speaker, doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from prevention. It comes from strong policing. It comes from smart investments and a justice system that works. Je veux commencer en disant clairement et avec compassion, nous sommes solidaires des victimes de la criminalité rurale. Nous entendons leurs histoires. Nous connaissons la peur qui s'installe lorsque l'appel au 911 semble trop loin. Nous comprenons l'anxiété qui s'ensuit lorsque le crime frappe à votre entrée, à votre atelier ou à votre maison. Cette peur est réelle et c'est notre responsabilité en tant que législateur d'y répondre par de vraies solutions. Real solutions, that's what our government is focused on delivering. We don't have to guess what works. We can look at the results. In 2024, Winnipeg recorded its first meaningful drop in violent crime severity in a decade, down 5%. Overall crime severity fell another 5.2%. That's the second straight year of decline after years of spikes under the former PC government. Province-wide, StatsCan reported Manitoba's crime severity index fell nearly 4% in 2024. These are real improvements, not slogans. These were achieved through real investment, coordination, and leadership. Chief Gene Bowers of the Winnipeg Police Service said it best. For the first time in 4 years, the volume of violent crime has declined, and there is a more significant reduction in how serious the crimes were. Those are his words. They are proof that our approach is working. Because, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we remember what came before. Under the last government, 7.5 long years of frozen budgets, including Brandon, and failed policies, Manitoba saw crime skyrocket. Between 2022 and 23, violent crime surged, attempted murders up, homicides up, firearms offenses up, vehicle thefts up, and robberies up. Parce que, Madame la Présidente, nous nous souvenons de ce qui est venu avant. Sous le dernier gouvernement, 7 ans et demi de gel budgétaire et de politique ratée, la criminalité au Manitoba a explosé. Entre 2022 et 2023, la criminalité violente a grimpé en flèche. Les tentatives de meurtre ont augmenté. Les homicides, les infractions liées aux armes à feu, les vols de véhicules et les vols qualifiés. And what did the former PC government do? They froze funding to every police service in this province. Winnipeg, Brandon, Manitoba First Nations Police, even small-town forces like St. Anne and Altona. They cut funding for community safety by $2.6 million, eliminated restorative justice programs, closed correctional facilities, and ignored expert calls for prevention. We're actually opening correctional facilities, centers for justice. They left police short-staffed and communities feeling abandoned. In total, Winnipeg lost 55 police officers under the PCs, 55 fewer officers protecting families, investigating crimes, and building trust in our communities. That's their record. So when the opposition now brings forward a resolution that tells Manitobans to take justice into their own hands, to meet fear with force, it rings hollow. Because the truth is, the PCs had their chance to make Manitobans safer. Instead, they made it less safe. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we must never forget that behind every headline about crime is a human being, a victim, a family, a community trying to heal. That's why we must be so careful about the messages we send. When a government signals that people should just defend property first, history tells us who pays the highest price. The Colton Bushy tragedy remains a painful reminder that so-called stand your ground laws disproportionately endanger Indigenous people and racialized communities. Our laws should de-escalate violence, not normalize it. They should protect victims, not encourage split-second decisions under fear. The last thing Manitobans need is a policy that tells frightened homeowners that the safest path is to pull the trigger instead of calling for help. Les lois doivent protéger les victimes, pas encourager les décisions prises par la peur. La dernière chose dont le Manitoba a besoin, c'est d'une politique qui dit aux propriétaires effrayés que la voie la plus sûre est d'appuyer sur la gâchette plutôt d'appeler à l'aide. Honourable Deputy Speaker, our approach is grounded in evidence, compassion, and accountability. We're not talking about slogans. We're talking about investments that deliver results. After years of stagnation, our government increased funding to all municipal police services by 28%, the largest increase in Manitoba history. We invested in 24 new police officers for community policing, with 12 already on the streets and 12 more on the way this spring. We also provided $2 million to expand Manitoba's Operational Communications Centre, adding 6 RCMP officers and 10 dispatchers to improve emergency response across rural and northern Manitoba. That means faster response times when seconds matter. As AMM President Kathy Valentino said, these additional resources are both timely and essential. And she's right, because rural and northern communities deserve the same rapid, coordinated protection as those in our cities. Madame la Présidente, nous pouvons être tous d'accord d'une chose. Aucun Manitobain ne devrait se sentir impuissant lorsque le crime frappe à sa porte. Mais la solution n'est pas de dire aux gens de s'armer ou d'agir seuls. La solution est de s'assurer que l'aide est là. Et quand ils ont besoin, des agents bien formés, une répartition efficace, des lois solides, and prévention coordonnée. We owe it to victims, especially those in rural and northern Manitoba, to give them security without asking them to risk their lives for it. We owe it to the next generation to create communities built on trust and cooperation, not fear and confrontation. So the choice before us today is clear. We can build on the progress that's reducing crime. The evidence is before you. Have record police funding, better tools, smarter justice, and meaningful prevention. Or we can adopt a PMR that undermines accountability and puts more Manitobans at risk. Le choix qui s'offre à nous aujourd'hui est clair. Nous pouvons nous appuyer sur les progrès réalisés pour réduire la criminalité, un financement record de la police, de meilleurs outils, une justice plus intelligente et une prévention significative, où nous pouvons adopter une résolution qui mine la responsabilité et met davantage de Manitoba en danger. Our government chooses safety, compassion, and results. We choose prevention over provocation. We choose to make Manitoba safer for everyone, not by rewriting the criminal code for confrontation, but by rebuilding trust, protecting families, ensuring no one in our province ever feels alone again. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
So before we move on to the next speaker, we have seated in the public gallery from Peguis Central School 30 grade 8 students under the direction of Jacqueline Curzel. This group is located in the constituency of the Honourable Member for the Pas-Kamisak. The Honourable Minister of Innovation and New Technology.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I want to echo the words of my colleagues. Everyone in this chamber already agrees that Manitobans have a right to feel safe in their homes, in their communities, and the government has a very clear responsibility to ensure that that's the case. This resolution, however, does absolutely nothing to make that true. In fact, it contributes to an atmosphere of fear and animosity that makes all of us less safe. What I'm most disappointed about in this bill, it's very much a dog whistle bill that is beneath debate here. But what truly disappoints me about this is that I know full well in a couple of hours, the member from Borderland will get to his feet and complain about the fact that some minister or other on this side of the House didn't bother to answer a question that he'd asked in this chamber. He'll be outraged by that. And yet, when asked questions about the record of the previous PC government in relation to law enforcement, or when asked a specific question about a case that he used as an example of why this resolution needed to be advanced that occurred during that term, he chose not to answer that. Why wasn't this a priority for the government at that time? So I'm curious why that would be. Why didn't he address those things? There's really only one potential answer, and that's because it's not the PC pattern to solve crime, to address crime. It's the PC pattern to campaign on crime.
Order, please. When this matter is again before the House, the Honourable Minister will have 8 minutes remaining. The hour being 12 noon, the House is recessed and stands recessed until 1:30 p.m.